Hello there. What is going on, everyone? We are back on board the bridge of the USS Enterprise D to talk about Star Trek Into the Unknown with 10, count them, 10 burning questions that I've got about the future of this game. If you are new here to the channel, love to have you stick around. We talk a lot about tabletop games, Star Wars games, Star Trek games, science fiction games, nerdy, geeky games, fun, board games, tabletop games, all of it, where it all intersects. We talk about all of that stuff a lot here on the channel. Love to have you join us. Links are in the social media stuff. All that stuff is in the video description below. And we are doing another round of the $25 Amazon gift card giveaway. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my other videos. It's as simple as that. Let's go ahead and start talking about it. So Star Trek Into the Unknown, new hit game by WizKids, won a bunch of awards just at Origins recently as well. Very, very cool game, and the beautiful miniatures. You've probably seen me talk about it. We've got channels for it in our Discord if you're interested in that, as well as links to other Discords as well if you want to continue to go down the rabbit hole. But yeah, really liking this game. Rising Tensions, the Klingon expansion, is getting closer and closer. We've been talking about that as leaks and news has come available. But amongst all of this, I've got a lot of questions. So I thought this would be a great opportunity for 10 burning questions about the future of Star Trek Into the Unknown. And we're gonna kick things off with a Klingon-based question for number one. It's how will they really work? How will the Klingons work? They're definitely a warlike race. They're all about honor and glory, and Gowron with those eyes. Yeah. But are they that different? You know, game mechanic wise, from how maybe the Jem'Hadar might fight? Are they going to be too similar? Are they going to be a little bit more about hit and run tactics? Are they going to be a little bit more about boarding teams? Are they going to be a little bit more melee oriented? Are they going to be is range going to be a thing? Are they going to be like a little bit more close range? Or are they going to try to hit from afar? All of these are interesting questions. Are they going to be sciencey? I mean, I would imagine not. I imagine they won't focus as much on trying to do missions. They probably focus a little bit more on trying to, to kill your opponent. Or will they get points for dying? Beam down to a site and fight the away team. Even if you lose, you gain glory for that. I don't know if any of that stuff is going to be, big ways that they play. And why in the heck is Gowron 15 points? What is he really doing? We've seen hints of his card, something about, messing with your directives, but I'm very interested to see how he's going to play and how the Klingons as a whole are going to play. So that's the one question. Will they have batleths as well? Are they going to have batleths? Maybe someday, but not today. I don't know. Question number two is, the Klingons seem to have only 2 ships when we look at the Rising Tensions box, joined also by 2 Federation ships. How is a 2-ship expansion going to actually fit into the game when incident missions require 3? Question mark? Asterisk, perhaps? I'm certain that question will be answered in due time, but it is a burning question that I have. How is that going to work? There certainly was another bird of prey teased at Adepticon, and it certainly seems that other options will eventually become available, but when? And will you be able to play incident missions with this straight out of the box? Obviously, there's some sway, and there's ways that certain things can potentially cross faction. Is that going to be what's expected in order to do this? Is the campaign expansion itself, because it is labeled a campaign expansion, is the campaign itself going to focus strictly on only 2 ships, or will it grow up into 3? It's a very interesting question. There's also shuttle tokens in there, but I don't think you can bring shuttles as one of your 3 ships for an incident mission. So there's some very, very interesting questions about how this is going to fit into the larger game, and how you might want to bring them to a tournament or organized play event. How is that going to work once this comes out? That is question number 2. Question number 3 goes into cloaking. We got a picture of one of the photos I took at Adepticon here. How is cloaking going to work? There's a lot of questions here. Is your ship totally coming off the board? There's presumably there's some movement that goes into it when you do cloak and or decloak, but is it going to function similar to how stealth works in the core game's campaign, which just kind of makes you significantly harder to hit? Or does it involve you just staying exactly where you are and doing your normal thing and just being harder to hit? Is it going to be exactly like stealth? Is it going to be similar to stealth? Is it going to be all together different? And will it work different for different races? Will all cloaking devices be created equal? Which brings me into question number 4. The inclusion of Subcommander Tarul in the spoilers for this indicates that we are possibly going to be getting a Federation cloaking device. So will the Defiant finally get its cloaking device, and how will that work? Will that be the same as the Klingons? Will it be different? Will cloaking work differently between them? Will Subcommander Tarul be required on board a ship that runs a Federation cloaking device? Will it be restricted to the Defiant only? Again, in Deep Space Nine's timeline, when the Defiant did finally get approved, there was a very strict alliance and she had to be on board and all of this. There were all these rules and regulations which only lasted for a few episodes before they just completely threw them out the window and said, you know what, we're just going to cloak whenever we want. But initially there was a whole lot of red tape going into getting that cloaking device on board the Defiant. And it is a Federation cloaking device going to have a similar amount of red tape? Will it be restricted to the Defiant only? Will it be able to go on other versions of the Defiant class, especially since the Defiant itself comes in the core set, and the one that we get is, I believe, not the Defiant. I think its numbers are going to be slightly different. I guess we'll have to wait and see how all of that is going to work. And will you be able to take it without her? Maybe you don't want Romulans on the bridge of your ship. Maybe you've got Worf there and he gives her dirty looks. Maybe. Who knows? Because Worf on the Defiant is also a pretty good option, right? So, and maybe you don't have to do role play on your games, but I like to, because that's kind of one of the fun parts of this. And Worf and her would not be getting along all that well. He's honorable and all. He would probably get the mission done, but there would be some snide remarks both ways, I am sure. So yes. All right. So. I think that was question number 4. We're going into question number 5 right now. Standalone ship packs. Are we going to see any of these, or any more of these, I should say? We did get the one with that metallic finish on the Enterprise D, although that really was less of a standalone ship pack and more of a collectible, because it didn't come with the officer that you might need to run the Enterprise. There was a lot that it didn't come with, although it's still cool, and you can still it's more of a swap in rather than adding a whole extra ship, but you could use it to add a whole extra ship with some limitations of, you still need the core set. So, but are we going to be getting actually true standalone ship packs? I know there was some talk of that potentially happening, but we haven't seen any yet. And so I'm curious if that is still part of the plan, if it's been delayed, if it's still going to be happening, and when can we learn more about it, because I love the idea of more ships, more ship packs, and building out my fleet. Yeah, that's a fun thing. Bonus question for that is, if we do get enough standalone ship packs, are we going to have a game mode where I can just run all of my ships and just do a massive, crazy, ultra-size battle? That's probably a question for a couple of expansions down the road, but that's a bonus one. There'll be a couple of little bonus questions in here, right? Like the alternate mirrored metallic, like the shiny red one that was a promo. I like the idea of doing alternate ships that are just cosmetic only. I think that's a fun way to do special little releases and stuff without giving somebody a gameplay advantage. So those are fun, and they can be cool. And they help sustain the game. They help give people chase things. They help give people I want to collect everything and brings in more revenue, keeps the game afloat, and keeps everything in production. So I'm all for stuff like that. That's a great idea, as long as it doesn't give somebody who is at a convention a gameplay advantage. Just make it cosmetic, and we're good to go. All right. But I still want the fancy cosmetic stuff too, because it's fun. All right, on to question number 6. Question number 6. All right, so with the core set, having its own share of delays, and then Rising Tension also having delays, it's starting to look like we're only going to get new stuff for this game once a year. So is that going to be the plan moving forward? Is that what we can expect? Is a basically one release per year going to be the norm, or is that more just that's how it's been right now, but the plan is to have it more frequent than that? I'm curious what the plan on was supposed to be versus what it ends up being, and what we can expect in the future with regard to release schedules. I know that's difficult to predict, and that can be a difficult question to answer. So I'd like maybe it's a two-part question. Like what's the reality of the situation versus what were you hoping to do? Like what's best case and worst case for those, because we can kind of measure some of our expectations based on that type of feedback. Because sometimes, especially with the core set coming out and then like not having anything still, it's like I think a lot of people are like, dude, where's more? We need a lot more, especially at the beginning. We won't necessarily, once a year is fine, like 5 years in, but like the first year, it's kind of like we need more to keep the flames burning, otherwise the fire's going to die out. So that's why I'm hoping we can get stuff a little bit more frequent over the next year and a half. It'd be nice to have a slightly more heavy flow of new content coming out for Star Trek Into the Unknown. So that's my question. I know it's kind of a loaded one, because there's statements thrown in with the question. I admit that, but I think it helps phrase the question and why the question's there. All right, moving on is what race is coming next? Now, this is a tough question that it's a little bit harder to answer until it's ready to be revealed. Because, again, with any licensed product and stuff that's working behind closed doors, you typically don't announce things until they're ready to be announced. But it's still a burning question. There's definitely been some hints, right? With Sub-Commander Tyrul, certainly hints that the Romulans could be coming next, since they're now a confirmed faction in the game. We've got the green backing on her card and the Romulan symbol. And of course Romulans were going to come in. Of course we're going to get Cardassians. Of course we're going to get Bajorans. Of course we're going to get Ferengi. We've seen stuff for these guys already, but what's coming next? Does Sub-Commander Tyrul mean that Romulans are coming next? Does sway with Bajorans or Cardassians or Ferengi that we've seen on cards mean that those are coming next? I would think in the grander storyline, Cardassians would probably be certainly very, very close to being next. Of course, if you go based off of some of the early spoilers of expansion names and titles and things that have already been sort of revealed to the public, it does seem like Cardassians are probably coming soon. However, it's always hard to tell, because certain names of expansions, like when Rising Tensions was revealed, we didn't know what that could have meant. That could have been anything, right? People speculated that it was Romulans, Klingons, or Cardassians. So it's hard enough to guess what all of the names mean. Of course, I think if you named one like Greed and Latinum, then we would have a pretty good idea that would be Ferengi, right? But imagine our surprise when we find out it was humans all along. So, or Terrans, right? Will we even see mirror universe content? I could speculate for days on what the next kind of races and groupings and factions that are coming to the game. Are we going to do original series stuff? Are they going to do Discovery? Are they going to do Strange New World stuff? Are they going to do the animated stuff? There's a lot of that, and I think the door is open for all of it. But what's coming next is really the question. Because again, I give the question, I'm talking all around the question. Let me circle back to the question: what comes next? I think if I were a betting man, I would bet either Cardassians or Romulans would be next, because of the fact that they're two of the more prominent races. Romulans by far are the more prominent race in Star Trek as a whole, but Cardassians are the more prominent race in Deep Space Nine, and in the timeline that this game's storyline kind of takes place. So there's a case for either of them to come next. We might be surprised, and it might be Ferengi that are next. Ferengi could be a good faction that could fit into anywhere. You could get some other, standalone ships that are more for hire. You might see Andorians or something else, that that maybe want to work on their own, or that are going to ally with the Federation a little bit. I don't see Andorians fitting in to this storyline right now, but my point is, it could be anything. I have my guesses, and I'm curious of your guesses too. Let me know in the comments what you think is coming next and why. Moving next, that was question number 7. We're getting close. Question number 8. Will every race get a large expansion? We've seen only one true, new faction expansion so far, and that's for the Klingons. And this is a big box. It's not like in some other games where you might get a new faction and you only get like, here's this ship pack, and here's this ship pack, and here's this ship pack, and there's your new, this is almost, it's not truly a starter, because again, it does say it requires the core game. But this is a big box expansion. Getting 4 ships in one box is probably good for retailers. It's a single item they have to keep on shelves. So now this means, like, if you want to stock Star Trek Into the Unknown, you just need the core game and this. You only need 2 products you need to keep on your shelves to have all of the ships from the game in stock. So that's pretty cool right now, and I can see the appeal of doing that. But when, for example, if Romulans were to come out, are they going to get the same treatment? And if so, does that mean that it's going to be mixed with Romulans and another faction, or will it be more of a standalone starter at some point? What is the vision for this? Is every new big box expansion going to be a multi-faction, campaign type expansion? Or will we see entry points for somebody who maybe doesn't like the Federation and only wants to get in to Romulans, or only wants to play Cardassians? It's a very interesting question. I feel like with the game's focus of being story-driven in a lot of ways and working very, very well with a campaign, it is likely we will probably see more Rising Tensions style campaign expansions. Although, even if we do, I don't think that automatically means that every box will have Federation as the other race. For example, we could potentially see Romulans and Cardassians show up in a box, or Romulans and a Ferengi ship, or something like that. It is potentially possible that they could introduce multiple races in a single expansion in that way. I'd love to hear more about what some of the plans are for future expansion content. Will it be all big box, or will it be a mix of big boxes and small boxes in the future? Number 9, will future expansions go back and add things to other races? For example, are we done with Klingons now with Rising Tensions, or will we see more Klingons in future expansions? Yes, I am using a preview of Governor Worf from Decipher's old Star Trek, the card game, the customizable card game. Love that card. Love the Future Enterprise. Love the TNG finale, by the way. So, yes, he got thrown up in here as this. But, yes, so, and that's a good example of a way that it might happen, too. But, in the same way that we didn't get all of the Enterprise crew in the core set, but yet Rising Tensions comes back, and we've seen spoilers of things like Riker and Geordi LaForge, for example. Are future expansions going to come back and say, oh, here's some more Klingons to fill out your Klingon fleets. Here's some, because there's a lot of Klingons. I mean, there have been a lot of Klingon episodes. I think Klingons have had, when you look at episodes that involve other alien races, I think Klingons have had more than anybody else. So there's a lot of Klingons that you can pull from. There's Klingon scientists, Klingon diplomats. You got Klingon politicians, Klingon old wise men and wise women, and of course lots and lots of Klingon warriors. You've got an awful lot of Klingon personalities, ranging from the treacherous to the honorable and everything in between. So I think there's definitely a lot of opportunities for more Klingons to come out in future expansions. And is that going to be the normal? We continue to see Federation officers sprinkled in the future. If Romulans come out, does that mean that's all the Romulans we're ever going to get? When Cardassians come out, is that all the Cardassian crew we're ever going to get? It becomes a little trickier to do that, I think, in the future, when you have races that have fewer identifiable and recognizable ships. You probably have very few Bajoran expansions that you can release that are going to have shelf appeal, for example. But that doesn't mean you can't at least sprinkle in some crew from place to place. So I wonder how they're planning to do that. Because inevitably there's going to be some recognizable Federation folks that we won't have, even if we get most of the rest of the Enterprise crew. Somebody's going to be left off. Are we going to get some of the... I'm guessing we'll get all of the A-team, but maybe we won't. Maybe we won't get Dr. Pulaski, right? Maybe we won't get Luoxana Troy. Things like that. And I hope we get Wesley Crusher. I definitely do. But that's, because again, Will Wheaton's kind of what got me to create my whole channel. So, it's not just about Wesley Crusher. It's about Will Wheaton in tabletop and in playing X-Wing for the first time. That just changed my world. I watched this and it was like big eyes, like an anime girl. And that was me with unicorns and rainbows staring at this video thinking, this is the coolest thing ever. Changed my life. So yes, I want Will Wheaton in every game that I've got. And it doesn't always work out that way because he's not in every IP. But I definitely want a Wesley Crusher. Actually, I want a Traveler Wesley Crusher, which would be kind of cool. Or like a talk show host version of Wesley Crusher who kind of sits down and, well, he'd be Will Wheaton. He wouldn't be Wesley Crusher. And he interviews the captains after the game. It's like, so, I noticed you attacked early and took 2 negative victory points. Tell me what went wrong. And he can interview the losing commander first. I don't know. All right, let me move on before I get too far off topic onto my 10th and final burning question. Will we ever see Deep Space Nine in this game? I know it's big. I think it's huge. I think it would be amazing to have this at conventions and have big events that you can't do all at once. I think it's a very cool concept. It might be cost prohibitive, though, to make something that's in scale. Because, again, this game's... one of the claims to fame with this game is that it's in scale. Now, there was an Attack Wing Deep Space Nine that used to be about $100 in the before times, before we had tariffs and inflation. Well, we've always had inflation, but I'm sure it wouldn't be $100 now. And something like that would probably at least be $200. But that's not exactly to scale with this game, so it would have to be significantly larger than that, which would also potentially make the price go up. And I think if you start getting into a space station that costs upward of $700 to $1,200, now you have something that's absurd and people are going to mock you over and might bring more negative publicity than positive. Or it could work the other way and say this is the most beautiful thing ever. Again, there's different ways, and also the difficulty of shipping something that large. I backed I'm a Thundercats fan as well, and I had backed the Super 7 Cat's Lair, which is this massive 4-foot tall Cat's Lair for this. And if you're a fan of the 80s cartoons and you know what the Cat's Lair is, it's a castle basically. And the problem with shipping something that large is that it tends to break in shipping. And a lot of people had broken stuff and complained about, either FedEx dropping their box and it broke stuff on the inside and, getting shit, it was not an easy thing to do. So to be able to have a really large, I think a scale DS9 could be 3 feet tall, potentially. It might be a little bit too much. Of course, they don't necessarily have to do the whole thing. If they want to keep costs down and keep the box smaller, could be a fraction of it. You get a wedge of Deep Space Nine that goes in the corner of the map. And if you're crazy, you can buy multiple of them and then connect the whole thing together. So you can build, because it's kind of it's symmetric, right? So you could buy half of it, or even better, a third of it at a much smaller cost. So if you wanted to keep the cost, below $200, maybe you do just 1/3 of it or something like that. I don't know if that would be below $200. I don't know what the cost would be for the size that we're looking at. Still might be expensive, but probably wouldn't be $1,000 if you're trying to just get 1/3 of it, right? Again, that's just the physical model, though. People could always just 3D print the model. I mean, how would it play for games? Could be very, very cool. could be the subject of a lot of different, like attack on Deep Space Nine could be a multi-phased attack. You could do a whole campaign, or at least a mini campaign, like a 3-mission like scouting force. Can we do diplomacy, or are we going to go and have a full-fledged assault? You know, you could do an interior portion also, and like how would that work? And then of course, can you just put all 3 together and bring those to Adepticon or Gen Con or whatever, and then have them set up in the middle of the table and just have, all right, it's everybody against Deep Space Nine, go. You know, you're either Federation or you're on with the attacking team, and you can be any non-Federation race for the attacking team. Cardassians joining forces with Romulans, with the Dominion, and just like boom, like just do the whole war. I feel like the game has to get to that point at some point, right? I think we have to get there eventually. And I mean, I hope we get there. That would be really, really cool. Oh, so those are my 10 burning questions about Star Trek Into the Unknown. Let me know some of your thoughts. I will talk to you later. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. So say we all. And always wash your socks.